Happy off-season Friday to everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Friday. I hope y'all had a great day. Everything's doing good. And we're going to talk some 49ers off-season. I know that's not the sexiest thing, but I haven't had Rohan on in quite a bit of time, so I wanted to bang on that drum again, ask him some stuff that we may have already covered, but I wanted to have a different slant on things. And then, of course, we got my dude, Beto, on here, Niner Sickness. He's always with me on Fridays. Things on Fridays are going to be kind of different for a bit, as the off season. So nothing's ever going to be in stone, but we'll try to be on here as much as possible when news permits. But how's everybody doing? How you doing, Rohan?
Hey, I'm good, man. Appreciate you reaching out today. Glad we can make it work. I know some of the timings have been off normally, obviously, because of my work schedule, but glad to make it on and glad to share the stage with both of y'all tonight.
Yeah, you and Beto were actually in the same locker room right now. I'm kind of jealous. I don't have that.
Yeah, man.
I don't have my green screen.
You got to get on the vibe, Aaron.
I have a green screen, but I'm in the process of like Jesse of getting a new camera eventually. So until I get my new camera and everything, I'm just gonna kind of keep it as is. But I got my funky neon background, so I figure everybody appreciates that.
No, and that's new. That's new for you. So you've only been sporting that for what, this season?
Maybe the last 2 months of the season, because I was the bedroom man. Everybody says that my bedroom used to look like an OnlyFans set. So for anybody who doesn't know who that is, look it up. All right, guys. So there's some news that's been floating around here the last couple of days. I'm trying to pick what to go first with. I think what we could talk about is the fact that on February 22nd, a lot of questions hopefully will be answered after that date. That's when Purdy has his surgery on his elbow.
Yeah.
I know, dude, I thought the report was they're going to look at it the day before, or I forget exactly how it went, but we're going to get answers to, if it's a normal UCL surgery, if it's going to be some sort of hybrid surgery, which would keep him out longer, or if it be a full-on Tommy John's. The Niners, since the end of the season press conference, banged on the drum saying he's back in 6 months. He'll be time for camp, which the dates don't actually line up, which is kind of weird. But what's your take on that, Rohan? Are you in the mindset of like me and Beto that it's just a matter of like getting to that date and we'll find out the actual nitty gritty on the situation?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is like so complicated, right, in itself, because there's a lot of nuggets about it. We'll first start with best case scenario. Let's say best case scenario, Brock Purdy comes out and it only takes the minimal amount of time. First of all, is he going to be ready for training camp? Like you said, the timelines don't match. If we're talking 6 months, at February 22nd, if you have that surgery, August 22nd is the date that 6 months has arrived. That is the week of the 3rd, the final preseason game going into the season. So he essentially has no offseason if that's the 6 month timeline. Now, I've also heard how it's 3 months and then 3 months of buildup from 3 to 6, and 6 is when he's fully healthy. But I also don't know, are the 49ers going to play a player in the offseason who's not fully healthy? I don't know if that's the smartest decision. Maybe slow ramp up in some training, maybe one-on-one work, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. Remember, that's best case scenario. Now, we don't know if this is going to be a worst case scenario or not, but I hope the best for Purdy. I really hope this surgery doesn't take out too much of his time. I really do hope that he's available for training camp in however capacity that might be, because the best thing for the 49ers is for their young quarterbacks to have a competition this year. Trey Lance wants it. Brock Purdy wants it. And I think the players themselves want a competition. I mean, even if you've heard how it's Brock Purdy's job to lose, which I think is a fair statement to make given the way that he played, you still want, you see them wanting a competition. That's the best case scenario. And right now, the unfortunate reality is there's so much uncertainty, because even if after the surgery happens, there could be setbacks. And also the part that I think I read from a doctor when this initially came out is the issue is there might be lingering soreness in the arm if it's not a Tommy John type surgery. So there's a lot of different possibilities. I wish the best for Brock's health. Hope he makes the decision that doesn't rush it and worsen his condition, but the best decision for his health. And then he's able to come back and play in whatever capacity when he returns.
I saw this or comment that just came in from Anthony. He said that they need to bring in a reliable veteran backup. It's funny that press conference at the end of the year, Kyle was like super animate against any talk of needing to invest into the quarterback room. And I was just like, that's what gives me the hope that they know more. Because, in the past, Kyle's been wrong about, and the front office and the everybody, whoever the trainer has been wrong about guys, and then they end up needing to be out longer, or they never end up playing ever again, like Jalen Hurd or something. So I'm right now I'm in the mindset, and I'm sure when I ask Beto, he's probably the mindset too. Is it's we'll wait and see, and when we know is when we know, and we can talk about it and make YouTube videos about it all we want, but until we find out something concrete, we're really just blowing smoke up everybody's butt. So, but yeah, Beto, what's your take on the situation as far as this whole thing goes?
Yeah, I'm with Rohan as well. We're gonna have to wait and see what type of surgery he needs. At the end of the day, as a Niner fan, I want him to take the surgery that does not keep him out for most of the year or all the year. I would love him to compete with Trey Lance. I think competition is always great. Iron sharpens iron, as one man sharpens another. So I think competition always brings the best out of each competitor. But in the same token, it's a sticky situation. I presume for the young man Brock, because it's not like Brock's a first round, second round guy. He's a seventh round guy. So if he chooses to have the surgery that keeps him out for the whole year, that might be better in the long run in the sense of his elbow and shoulder, whatever it is. But can he afford to lose his job to Trey because of injury and never get an opportunity again to be a starter? So that might be a situation where he might rush and not choose that surgery and get the one that is quicker, for the fact that he wants to compete, because he realizes as a seventh round player, if I don't take my opportunity now, I can lose it. And who knows when I can get back on the field. So I hope he makes the right decision for him and his family. You never want to rush anything. As a Niner fan, I want him back quickly, compete with Trey. But as a human being, as a father, I would want him to make the right decision for himself and for his family, and do not allow pressure of not playing on the field again to make the wrong decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with us or the organization. I know that there was talk that Mostert kind of talked about that the organization might have forced him into playing in the past, and you wonder how much of that has any credence or whatever. But I don't want, and I hope that the 49ers don't. I don't think they will, but I would not like to want him to be under some sort of unnecessary pressure to think that he has to come back. If you need to get Tommy John surgery, do it. The Niners have a roster, and they're going to have a roster this year that, I'm sorry, Trey Lance needs to show us something, and he has enough pieces around him to where I really don't want to hear many excuses. You know what I mean? I know he hasn't had the time or the equal, reps or whatever, but this is kind of regardless of the situation, this is kind of a put up or shut up type thing this year. So he has a chance to come into camp and off-season workouts and do a really good job, and maybe kind of, I can't say make people forget about Brock Purdy, but make his comeback not be so something that we have to force. So this is a big shot for Trey Lance, really, to get his shine on and do really well, and kind of see the thing with Purdy is Purdy can be forgotten about very quickly in this league because he was a 7th round pick. He played only a handful of games. People are always going to look at the guy like Trey Lance, who has all the upside, as something more sexy, regardless of what he hasn't done. Whereas Purdy can be easily forgotten about and put in the back burner. So it'd be interesting to see when this date hits, and maybe the day or two after, when we finally get some information. It's going to be one way or the other, guys. There's either going to be mass panic or jubilation. Anthony made a good point in the chat, and I've never seen you in here before, but I appreciate you participating. He says, coming into this season with 2 young QBs who are both coming off injuries, can't be reliable. What happens if one of them gets hurt? That's the thing. If you force one guy to come back too quickly and they overthrow or, do whatever to hurt themselves, and then you're right back at square one. So be interesting to see who the Niners bring in to compete. I know Kyle's all like, I don't need anybody. I'm angry and I'm mad. But I think you need another competitive quarterback in that room. So we'll see.
I agree. And I mean, to give respect to Kyle Shanahan, he did say that the 49ers will bring in a quarterback on a mid-level. I forget exactly the wording, but he did insinuate they're going to bring in a veteran, which, if we're being honest, is obvious. They're going to bring in a veteran because Brock Purdy will not be able to throw in the offseason, at least in the early part of the offseason and OTAs. You normally carry 3 to 4 quarterbacks in the offseason because that's the 90-man roster. So they're at least going to bring in one more body, likely at least 2 bodies too, if we're talking about it, to make sure they're throwing well in OTAs. And one of them will likely end up being on the roster in 2023 because you're going to sign him to be the backup to push Trey Lance. Maybe not necessarily give him a big guarantee, but it's an interesting quarterback class. I mean, if you're talking about backup caliber options, it's led by Jacoby Brissett, but I don't know if Brissett's going to make enough, or if he's going to be of the cost that the 49ers are willing to spend. Brissett will likely make around $10 million a year, maybe $8 to $10 million a year. And I think that is a value where I don't know if the 49ers are going to pay that, but there are several options. I mean, when you talk about backups, Teddy Bridgewater's there, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Andy Dalton, if you're looking at older options, even guys like a guy who I pointed out last week in an article was Taylor Heineke. I think Heineke understands his role, and I think that he's a guy who the 49ers could look at. But regardless, it's clear that the 49ers will bring in at least one quarterback this offseason. The question is who, and I think that the level of quarterback that they bring in will indicate kind of how they feel about Brock Purdy.
Yeah, well, they know a lot more than we do eventually. So we can't really like that. That's why I keep coming back to Kyle's behavior, and John Lynch seems so sure that it was a 6-month thing in that press conference. That's why in my brain I keep thinking that they know more, but then in my brain I also think about all the times that they were wrong about other players. So I'm kind of like 50-50 on it. But yeah, February, I'd say like 23rd, 24th. Once they went in there and did what they've had to do, we'll get our answers one way or the other. But speaking of quarterbacks, let's jump over to Trey Lance. I'll be guilty. I was all over Mike Silver and all the other people that were talking in the offseason about dead arm, Trey Lance, this, that, and the other. Looks like there was a little smoke, and where there's smoke, there's fire. There was actually some truth to that situation, Rohan. He talked about throwing for about 20 straight months with maybe a week off in that time, and said he pretty much had a dead arm. It was this year, right? So he kind of came into the
I believe it was his rookie year, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, so he came in, let's see. He said all fall ball, he had two sessions in fall ball a year, I think, that they didn't play, right?
Right.
Then he did draft prep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right, because he had a quarterback where he went from May 2020 because he got drafted in 2021, where after that fall ball he was throwing essentially from 2020, then had draft prep till 2021 in April of 2021, and then he'd thrown for an entire year already, and then he had and then when you bring it up to that offseason, like the offseason of his rookie year, he had essentially been throwing for 21 straight, pretty much.
That's insane. So, I mean, I guess a lot of people had an issue with that, or hearing that, just because he was drafted and had barely played in college. Like, how can this guy have a dead arm? And it also had to do with how some of the media were kind of making it out to be something that maybe that it wasn't. So, what was your take on that, Beto, when you heard that he had the dead arm situation? Shocked?
Yeah. Like you said, throwing the ball, trying to, impress scouts and impress teams out there prior to being drafted, and then throwing at the combine, throwing all this. I can see where he got fatigue, and a lot of times when these people talk about certain players, we tend to get upset. We get kind of bothered because they talk about a certain player that we particularly like, but these reporters, some of them do it for clicks, but for the majority part, some of them, they speak truth. They have inside source, and just because we don't like what they're saying, doesn't necessarily make it untrue. Like you said, we came to find out that Trey admitted himself about being tired, having a fatigue arm. So the source comes from somewhere, and hopefully this year his arm's stronger. We don't have to worry about that. And I'm really looking forward to see what Trey does. I think a lot of people already given up on him. I don't understand why. I understand that Brock Purdy has impressed a lot of people with what his decision making, the way he spreads the ball, and all that's great. But I think Trey Lance still has something to offer, and I don't think we have tapped what Trey Lance can do. Hopefully, he can get his accuracy together and show us this year that he's definitely the quarterback that Kyle Shanahan wants. Because I love Brock Purdy, everything about him, but man, you just can't. I understand that people fell in love with Brock, but I love what Trey Lance offers: his height, his strength, his ability to run. Um, there's so much that Trey Lance can do that Brock can't, in my opinion. So, a lot of people ask me, who's your quarterback? I'm like, whoever lines under center and helps us win, as long as it's not Jimmy, I'm good.
And I mean, to add to that, I think that since I mean the end statement is if it's not Jimmy is good, I don't think Jimmy comes back. But to add to that, the Mike Silver report was interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people went at him. I wasn't one of those people because
I was.
I know, but I wasn't one of those people because like I did think that there could be some truth to it, and I'm not going to say something if I don't know about what I'm talking about, and I'm not. I'll be honest. I mean, I heard maybe 2 months ago stuff that was fairly similar to what Mike Silver was saying. The only issue I do have with the Silver report is the timing, because the timing initially had insinuated that it carried over to 2022, which I believe in the report we had heard from Lance itself that it was specifically in his rookie year, and so the timing made it a little bit of a concern that it was also happening in 2022 when he was expected to be the starter.
Yeah, because it ran till January of 2022.
Correct.
That was when it ended. So it wasn't something that affected him this past offseason.
And sorry. I also no, I mean that's correct. And I also, when you talk about it, then the two things were just the context and the timing that you could maybe have an argument with, because when you talk about the context, right, you have to understand that during his rookie year, Lance was also suffering from a broken finger injury. He broke his index finger, and Lance himself admitted it that he didn't get healthy from the broken index finger until January of 2022. But when the season was over, in fact, that's why he had struggled in his start against Arizona. And he said he still felt it a little bit against the Houston Texans. And so you've got to understand the context about it. I mean, Lance provided the context on the podcast with Quincy Avery this week about how he'd been throwing for 20 months straight and things like that. So I do think that it's important to understand the reporting element of it, because it's a good story for Mike Silver. There are a couple of things that I'd say that I had an issue with the context and the timing, but still, yeah, I mean, once I heard some of the details about it a few months back, it was understandable. And unfortunately, Mike Silver did take a lot of flack initially for that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, but the good thing is Lance, it seems like that portion is gone, because obviously he is under a much better throwing program now. And also he doesn't have the finger injury.
CJ Gray made a comment about something that I've actually thought about. Any chance the Niners take one of those late round picks and draft a quarterback? Or do you think this is going to be squarely free agency Because I mean, it's not like the Niners right now until they do some movement on their salary cap and some contracts. They don't have a lot of money to play with.
Yeah.
Possibility. I mean, I've thought about it. To me, or would you rather have somebody because of what we saw happen with what I'm trying to talk about in the NFC
Right.
Championship game? You want to have someone. Yeah, I mean, you can't. Here's the thing: who loses all their quarterbacks, right? Like if you're at your fourth or fifth string quarterback, chances are your season's beat, right? Like nobody deals with that and has a guy that's that deep on the roster. You're never supposed to reach that point, but I don't know. What's your take?
I think it's an interesting topic. I mean, obviously, after what we saw with Brock Purdy, I do think, though, after evaluating some of the quarterbacks in the class and understanding who the 49ers might target, I wouldn't say it's one of the stronger quarterback classes down low. I would rank Brock Purdy probably fifth, maybe sixth in this quarterback class, somewhere in the top.
Wow,
definitely in the top 7. I mean, I was higher on Brock Purdy.
Other than Bryce Young, you hear nothing.
Right. And
class.
I mean, I think at the top, you can say it's strong. I think in the top, my number 1 and number 2 might be bold, but I have Young 1, Richardson 2.
Okay.
And I'm still evaluating the rest. I assume CJ Stroud goes number 3 for me. But overall, regardless, I don't think it's too strong of a quarterback class. I also think the 49ers do value the position and want to get a veteran. I don't think they need a veteran at the position. I was talking with Fish Kumar a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about how Brian Griese essentially is the veteran at quarterback because he played the position and now he's the coach. But I do think that they're going to look for a free agency because they want a solidified backup. Because if you're drafting a rookie, you have to understand he's going through the Shanahan system, and you don't want to simplify the system. But you also want a guy who you understand can compete with Trey Lance and OTAs and push him, because you want to know if Trey Lance is your guy going into training camp. If you don't know Trey Lance is your guy going into training camp, you have an issue, because you'll have an organizational divide on who might be QB1 and stuff like that. So to me, I think they go with the free agent. That's my personal belief with the amount of free agent backup level quarterbacks that are on the market. And because I believe they're going with a free agent, I don't think they draft a quarterback unless they're going to cut him and place him on the practice squad. You don't carry 4 on the active roster. Most teams, less than 30% of the teams carry 3 on their active roster. And the 49ers did 3, which was something that was unprecedented in the Shanahan era before. And so to me, I think the maximum they'll carry is 3. I do think they'll carry 3 next year because Purdy, the backup, whoever they sign, and Lance will likely be on the roster, given that the backup would have been there for the entirety of the offseason. And you also don't know necessarily how Purdy will respond. That's why, though, I don't think they draft a backup unless the intention is to cut him. And for the practice squad, of course.
Yeah, thing too is my sneaky suspicion and my fear is that they end up bringing back Josh Johnson for some crazy idea. I hope that's not the case.
I hope not.
I don't think it's a crazy idea. I honestly think that could be a possibility.
Right.
I wouldn't do it, but it could be a possibility.
Financial wise, it makes a lot of sense. But it definitely isn't a sexy move or something that gives you a lot of confidence if, say, both go down again, which that's a whole other issue for a whole other topic and show. We've all banged on the Kyle got 4 guys injured drum, and it's just, I mean, it can't happen again, right? This was just an anomaly this season. It can't happen. But real quick, just want to say thank you to Brian Culp for the $2 super. Is Jeff Vanderblock blocked? I don't see anybody.
I don't know who's that.
I don't know who that is.
I know he's on my show the other day. He said he mentioned that I didn't see his comments, but
maybe it was somebody that used to have a different name or something. I don't know.
People don't realize sometimes when you have a lot of people in your popping up, you're not going to hit every comment you see. You are going to skip, unfortunately, comment here. It doesn't mean we don't see it. It just you just don't click on it.
I don't see him.
I don't even see him. Yeah.
Yeah, the Trey Lance arm news to me, the Trey Lance arm news to me, I guess I had an issue just because there are certain guys in the media like Silver or like the co-host that runs usually with Chris Sims. I always forget his name.
Florio?
Yeah. You know, there's just certain guys that have agendas. Of course, we know that what's his name, who Trey dated his daughter. I always forget.
Colin
Yeah.
Coward.
Just certain guys I have a hard time listening to, even if what they're telling you is the truth. You just don't always take it the right way because there's always some sort of ulterior motive behind it. So that, to me, I thought it was just another crack on Lance, another chink that someone was trying to put in his armor to devalue him. So I think I was I'm pretty much sure I was blocked by Silver. I didn't say anything really mean other than like responding to something and saying that's a ridiculous take or something along those lines. So yeah, I no longer can comment on any of this stuff. But yeah, interesting. Speaking of quarterbacks, again, in some coaching news, a former Broncos quarterback offspring who seems like he's got a lot of offspring in the coaching family tree right now is Clint Kubiak. Was recently hired as the 49ers, or they didn't really give him a title, a high-level job within the 49ers offensive coaching group. He was the offensive coordinator for the Vikings before becoming the quarterback coach for the Denver Broncos and that whole train wreck this past year. I was listening to Locked On 49ers today, Rohan, and it was like the whole 6 degrees of separation or whatever, like whatever the saying is. Like there was so much like overlapping of people who know each other. It goes back to the Shanahan senior days. It goes back to the 49er days. It's interesting. You got D'Amico was once a player under Shanahan, and it's all really convoluted and interesting. But what's your take on Clint Kubiak coming on? And to me, this looks like another. If the Niners have a really good season or two, that he's going to end up being the next name again that's taken right from this coaching staff, along with probably Steve Wilkes. Yeah. So go ahead and kind of break that whole thing down.
I like the hiring, actually. I do, and I think that this is a good person to replace Bobby Slowick, who's going to be the passing game coordinator. And if we're being honest, like the passing game coordinator in San Francisco is essentially the offensive coordinator because Kyle Shanahan doesn't normally name offensive coordinators. And Clint Kubiak's been a guy who has experience as a coach. I mean, I know Vikings fans don't necessarily like him, but he's going to be in a different role, and a role in which the offense that he runs is going to be to a strong suit, because that Kubiak offense is and the Shanahan offense in a way are intertwined. I mean, that's where the coaching tree started with Gary Kubiak. And so to me, I'm fine with the hiring. I think it's a good hiring. And I do think, yeah, he's probably going to be the next name. If the 49ers want to keep him, they're going to have to promote him to OC. But he replaces Slowick. He's going to be, he should be solid. And I mean, him and Clay Kubiak are on the 49ers. Kubiak, obviously the younger one, Clay, had done a solid job with the quarterbacks this past year. And so, 49ers, I mean, the one thing you can't really doubt him on is just Kyle Shanahan's ability to pick his staff, because consistently, time and time again, Kyle Shanahan has shown that he has made the right hire. I don't think many hires that you point at Kyle Shanahan that he hasn't fixed, either he hasn't fixed or it hasn't been the right hire. And for the most part, it's been the right hire. You see the amount of people. I mean, Slowick left this year. Ryan's left this year. Corey Unlin left this year. A lot of different coaches left this year for higher roles because.
Wasn't Leary's, was it last name Leary? I think it is.
Leary.
I forget the name of the guy that was supposedly supposed to get a promotion. He was the 49ers tight ends coach this year.
Brian Fleury. Yeah, he's still with the staff. Still with the staff. Yeah. But no, I mean, in general, the 49ers have a lot of high rising assistants. Greasy, if he wants to, I'm sure is going to get some calls. I mean, in general.
Which is weird, though, because Greasy's never been a coordinator until this past year. I'm surprised he would get a lot of calls.
And I think that in today's offense, I mean, in today's league with such a high value towards offense, I mean, you hear owners, they're saying, we want offense. We want to score the football, be it in the run and the passing game. And a guy like Greasy, I mean, the only way for him to move up as a he's going to be a first-time coordinator at some point, right? If you're going to be a coordinator, it's going to be, I mean, people have to start somewhere. And so I don't know if he'll necessarily play call if or when he gets that coordinator job. But I mean, in general, the fact that you're talking about it after just 1 year as a coach just highlights how Kyle Shanahan has correctly identified his staff members continuously.
Brian Peacock and Near Crocker were talking about on Locked On 49ers this morning when I was listening, that Kyle hires certain guys, not necessarily to be like play callers, but he has so much other stuff that needs to be taken care of that lets him focus on calling games and creating a game plan. So he has all these coaches that do all this grunt work essentially to help him for what you see on Sunday. So they might not necessarily get play calling duties or, but that's why he in a way he trains them to do head coaching level stuff within a coordinator's position. Hey, I need you guys to do this, that, and the other for the next upcoming opponent. And they do all this stuff for Kyle. And then Kyle looks like the genius, which he is on Sunday. So that his coaches, they have a lot of responsibility. They're not just a dude who just sits in the booth and doesn't have any responsibility. Their responsibility on Sunday might not be as much as what you see Monday through Saturday. That's where they really earn their money. Beto, you've been around a long time as far as 49er fan. Do you find it interesting that like everything just kind of keeps coming back and recycled, and it's like what's old is new again, and vice versa with this whole, Kubiak was on our staff back in the year, I think in 94-95 season, the year we won the Super Bowl against the Chargers, and now his sons are part of the staff. I find it really interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, Kubiak was with Kyle's dad.
Yep,
a part of his team. What I love is about Kyle Shanahan. I know a lot of Niner fans. I just don't understand when I hear the "let's fire Shanahan, get rid of Shanahan."
Oh God,
crap is it's people don't understand when Kyle took over this team, 2017. This team was a mess. He did a whole redo. I think he only kept like 2 or 3 people from the old regime, and brought everybody new and started building him. And John Lynch started building from the floor up. Did Kyle make a couple mistakes in his first draft? Yeah, people say should he taken Mahomes or what's his name, Deshaun Watson instead of Solomon Thomas? They went with they should have, but they went with someone familiar. It was their first year. But going back to Kyle, bringing in Kubiak's son, it's just relationships you build along the way. You build these relationships with these people, and you can say whatever you want about Kyle, but Kyle brings great coaches and he develops these coaches. And even if these coaches make Kyle look good for say, it was Kyle that hired them in the first place. So Kyle has an eye for these coaches. And look at 3 minority coaches during Kyle's 6-year tenure here have already been promoted to head coach, and 2 GMs. Out of the Niners organization, 2 GMs and 3 coaches are now head coaches from Kyle. So apparently Kyle's doing something right. And 2 or 3 NFC championships and 1 Super Bowl appearance. Yes, he hasn't got over the top. Yes, he hasn't won the Super Bowl. But if people remember, Andy Reid, before getting Patrick Mahomes, was kind of in the similar same boat with McNabb and Alex Smith. He was always getting to the championship game, and 1 Super Bowl appearance, just couldn't get over the top. Once he got Mahomes, we know the rest is history. I think Kyle, whether it's Brock or whether it's Trey, once Kyle gets the quarterback that he needs, things are going to change. People just need to be patient. Yeah, I understand. Don't settle just for championship games. Want more, but don't crucify the guy for not winning the big game when you don't really have a quarterback. I mean, with Jimmy G, and nobody likes Jimmy G, but we got to the Super Bowl. Not because of him, but we got there, and he wasn't enough to win, and we saw that. But Kyle, I think Kyle should have won Coach of the Year. I understand they gave it to, what's his name from the Giants? He did one miraculous, yeah. And he did a wonderful job there, but Kyle deserves to be recognized as a coach. So for the Niner fans that don't like him, I just don't understand the hate. And then the whole idea to fire him. Who are you going to hire? What are you going to bring back?
Right.
Haven't you remember the coaches that we went through between Harbaugh
Yeah.
and Kyle? You want to go through that crap again? People need to be smart. Okay, if you want to fire someone, fire him, but who are you going to replace him with? He needs to be as good or better. If not, leave what needs to be left alone, in my opinion.
I love the Eric Bieniemy people. Yeah, just bring in Bieniemy. He'll get us over the top. It's like you don't even know that. He's never been anything more than what he's been, and now he's taking a lateral job with the Commanders. Real quick.
Enemy, let me just add about the enemy because I've been reading on it. I want to get Rohan's thought on this.
Go for it.
I understand sometimes you want to get out of the so-called big brother. Like you want to be recognized for what you do, but you're under the shadow of your big brother, Andy Reid and Mahomes. Do you think it's smart move for him to take this job with the Washington Commanders, who really don't have a quarterback, to prove who he is, or you think he should have stayed there? I understand that it sucks that he has been overlooked as a head coach, but to take the same position to not as good of a team, do you think that was smart for him? You think it'll benefit him in the long run? Do you think this might even hurt him?
You talking about Bieniemy?
Yes.
For me, I think it's an interesting move. When you talk about Eric Bieniemy, I think for me, I don't mind this move. I think though it's also like there were rumors where Kansas City might not have necessarily also wanted to keep him because they themselves have different coaches. I mean, when you talk about it, the guys who it seems like Kansas City has preferred, Mike Kafka, the quarterback's coach, who ended up being the offensive coordinator for New York. Matt Nagy. Nagy has been a guy who has been highlighted. I mean, he's seen as the potential successor to Andy Reid, not Bieniemy. It's Matt Nagy, and to me, I think that I don't mind the move. I think Bieniemy, for whatever reason, hasn't been able to get that head coaching job really anywhere. He's interviewed like 16 different teams. So is it an interview thing? I'm not exactly sure. Like that's one of the interesting conundrums, right? Is it more on Bieniemy or is it more in the NFL because of the diversity issue and things like that? And so I think that a change in scenery would definitely be good. And I mean, it's with the Washington team that is one of the worst or at least was one of the worst offenses. I think Bieniemy will be in a position to somewhat succeed in that he's got a strong group of receiving weapons, right? He's got McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. He's got some good guys there. I mean, even at running back, Bijan Robinson, Antonio Gibson, they're pretty strong as well at running back. So there are a lot of different pieces I think that he's going to be able to utilize. I mean, we'll see what he does. If he just gets a chance to prove himself, and I think he has proven himself to definitely to a degree thus far. But if this is the way for him to get the best opportunity possible, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the thing with Bieniemy too is we don't know how he interviews. He could very well not be a great interview. We'll see what he is away from the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of hard to judge somebody when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. Now, Andy Reid already proved himself over a long period of time. And as far as the comparisons with Andy Reid and Kyle, I mean, I'm in the belief that if you get enough cracks at something, eventually you're going to break through. You know what I mean? Kyle's up against the glass ceiling. He's reaching for that brass ring. And for some reason, the glass hasn't cracked yet. Eventually it's going to crack. The Niners are going to put themselves in a position for as long as Kyle and whether it's Adam Peters or John Lynch are here, that they're always going to have a hella competitive team to do something in the playoffs. Now, will it be as it's been the last couple of years? Will it, eventually maybe their defense won't be as good and they'll have to be strictly an offensive team? Maybe. And I just the whole fire Kyle Shanahan, unless you have an Andy Reid, honestly, or a Bill Belichick or some other high level coach as your coach to replace him, you don't replace him. And no, it's not settling for NFC championship games. Nobody in that building settles. I'm telling you, it's just, listen, Kansas City's the cream of the crop, man. The Niners need to build their team this year to be able to beat Kansas City. The hell with anybody else in the NFC. Kansas City is a team to beat to me. I don't think anybody else in this NFC conference is completely unbeatable. Oh, we lost Rohan.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be back. But you're right. The Niners do need to build a team to be able to get to Mahomes, and it starts with understanding that Javon Kinlaw is not your guy in the center of that defense. You need to get rid of him, and you need to bring in someone that can go after the quarterback and stop the run. Welcome back, Ron. You
My fault.
scared
That
me,
just
and
disconnected for a minute, but we're all good. We're all good.
yeah. I'm like, he disappeared. Where did he go? Okay, I guess the show's over, Aaron.
We put him to sleep. Let's go. Goodbye, everybody. Good night.
But yeah, we need to build that D line, and it starts with replacing Javon, because Javon Kinlaw is not the answer. He can be there as a backup, as a rotational player, but we need someone that can step in and help out Bosa and Eric Armstead, in my opinion. But we need to have someone in the center if we're going to make this defense continue to be better and try to go after Kansas City and beat Kansas City.
Yeah, to me, Kansas City is the cream of the crop. Like I've said before, I think the NFC is the Eagles were shown to be just as squishy on defense as any other team that goes up against Patrick Mahomes, even us. So when I say that, if we would have had a healthy quarterback in that NFC Championship game, and it would have been a lot different. A lot of people are like, oh, you're just a sore loser. I'm like, no, it just. And then of course Kansas City proved us right. So, but
Philly finally faced a good offense. This is what happened.
Yeah, they. Not saying they had an easy road to the Super Bowl, but they had a pretty easy road to the Super Bowl this year.
A lot of things went their way, though.
Yeah,
people don't understand how
they stayed relatively healthy this year.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, I think the Niners are pretty relatively healthy, other than losing, Barrett and.
Bro, we lost. We were until a fourth quarterback.
And that too, of course. The area baller made a good point. He says the thing with Bieniemy is we don't know exactly how much is Reed and how much is Bieniemy. Yeah, you don't. And now we're going to find out.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that, like, again, I don't have a footing in this because I don't personally, I don't know what goes on in the interviews. I haven't heard anything about Eric Bieniemy, and so this is just me speaking. But can we not say the same for Matt Nagy and Mike Kafka, who are quarterbacks coaches,
True,
but also are like they're the quarterbacks coach, but they're coaching the greatest quarterback that we've seen in the last decade, right? I mean, Brady obviously is there, but over the 20 years in the last in this decade, he's the best quarterback we've seen. So I mean, I think you can make the argument both ways. I don't want to discredit the two guys I just said. I'm a little higher on Matt Nagy than others. I know Chicago Bears fans hate him because of what his tenure there. But Kafka, I mean, he got a freaking head coaching interview in his first year as a coordinator with the Arizona Cardinals. He made it as a finalist, and so it's definitely a tough situation.
Definitely. Real quick, my buddy Stephen Lease, who's got Brian Culp all confused with his weird jokes in the chat. He's one of my gaming buddies. He's offering me a super duper chat. He says, Aaron and Charles found the money strapped to my thigh. It's a Family Guy reference, people. Relax, okay? It's Family Guy, okay? Anyways, let's jump to something stupid that we can talk about for about 2 seconds and then move on. The Deebo Samuel rumors of being traded to, what was it? The New England Patriots.
Yeah.
The cap ramifications alone,
the debt money
would need to be fired absolutely immediately for that. Rohan, do you have any idea where that's coming from? Is that just off season, is lying season, more or less?
Let me say this. I do think that a lot of people are looking at it a little differently. You guys might not like what I have to say, but I don't think that this is just speculation. I think that I don't think that I've said it on the timeline. I don't think this is a possibility for 2023. I think the talk is for 2024 and beyond. But I think that there's a good talk that you have to have. As for the dead cap, a lot of people are viewing it incorrectly. It would, if a trade were to occur, it would occur as a post June 1st move, where the 49ers would only take on a dead cap hit of $6.65 million this year, and the dead cap hit goes $6.65 million over the next 3 or 4 years for Deebo Samuel, rather than taking on, what is it, like a $28 million cap hit.
That's actually not bad. because we're paying $8 million to freaking D Ford right now to not even play on this roster. So
isn't it? So post June 1st is
if a trade were to occur, it would be utilized as it would be stated as a post June 1st designation, because his cap hit is $8 million this year. You save $2 million on the $8 million, and you save some money. You save $21 million next year, 17 the year after that, and things like that. And that because the reason you say post June 1st is because there's the cap hit that you can expand onto multiple seasons instead of the cap hit specifically falling on this season. And so that's the only way a trade would occur. However, my analysis on a potential Deebo Samuel trade, I don't think it's BS, but I think that there are two things that you could say. One, can the 49ers afford both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel on long-term contracts?
Nope.
Wrong, Aaron. Actually, they can, but it's different in that
not quite
as long
right.
As the quarterbacks are not getting paid, they can. They do like what they do with what the Chargers are doing.
Jeez, my ego just got crushed.
No, but Aaron, you are right, Aaron, in that when I talk about the context,
don't do that.
But
he's wrong.
But when you talk about it, Deebo Samuel's contract goes until 2025, I believe. He has 3 more years left on his contract. When you talk about Brandon Ayuk, this is his 4th year. He has a 5th-year option, which the 49ers will pick up in 2024. And then that 3rd year will be his first year of an extension, which the cap hit will be significantly low. The cap hit will be around less than $10 million because
You're
the
talking
49ers...
about Brandon Ayuk's 5th-year option, right?
Correct.
Okay, you said Deebo.
Ayuk, yeah, but I'm talking if Ayuk were to be extended. 2023 cap hit is low because it's the 4th year of his deal. The 5th-year option would be around 14 million, maybe 12 million. I don't know exactly what it would be next year. And then the first year of his extension, that cap hit should be fairly low because normally on the first year of these big extensions, it exponentially increases. The first year is low. And so the final year of Deebo Samuel's deal, where he's making $24 million a year, Brandon Ayuk's cap hit would be low. So technically you could have both contracts on and it wouldn't be a big cap burden. However, if Brandon Ayuk is extended, which I expect the 49ers to do, I don't expect Deebo Samuel to be a 49er after that contract. I think the latest Deebo Samuel remains a 49er is after the 2025 season, 3 years after this 3 years are over. And I do think that there's a realistic possibility that Deebo Samuel gets traded. I don't think it's as likely this offseason. I don't believe that it's that likely. But next offseason, when the 49ers can save $21 million and only take a dead cap hit of $6.65 million, I believe that would be when I forget the exact numbers, but I think next year would be more realistic than this offseason.
And they can get some value from him in draft capital and not just let him walk after 3 years. So that'll be smart.
My question is it depends on where he is physically and production wise. Man, if you can get a 1st-round pick, 2nd-round pick for a guy like that, turn that around and draft maybe his replacement. So I hate to do that. I hate 1-for-1s. I hate when I know what
you mean. Yeah,
I hate 1-for-1s because we did that with Kinlaw, which is the next thing I
want
to
have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah,
you
have Buckner up here, which a lot of people are not. I'm not a huge Buckner fan either, but he was the better of the 2 defensive
He's definitely
tackles.
better than Javon.
Right. And to me, you drafting the guy's replacement, and then he's a top 15 pick. The expectations are ridiculous, and he's not even gotten close to him. I want to transition into that real fast. You talked about Brandon Ayuk getting the what is it? I think it's May 1st. Is when
May 1st or May the 5th-year option. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was listening to something where somebody talked to Matt Barrows, and Matt Barrows says it's highly unlikely that the 49ers pick up Javon Kinlaw's 5th-year option, which as a lot of 49er fans, including myself, who are kind of put off by the guy and his personality wise, that's music to my ears because he hasn't earned it. And he has essentially been a bust for where they drafted him and the expectations. You know, people like to throw the bust word around all the time, but he has been. He's inconsistent against the run and he doesn't rush the passer. So essentially he's just a space eater. you can draft a space eater in the 4th round and have him sit in the middle of a defense. And the Niners drafted him with what, the 14th pick. So, yeah, I think this is a huge year for Ayuk.
Yeah, I
if
agree.
the Niners do think, like you said, down the road to possibly moving him, if Ayuk has another above average year, or, because with our offense, it's kind of hard to really stand out because the ball gets kind of thrown to who's open. It's not necessarily like, let's force the ball 15 times to one guy. I think that'll be a lot where the 49ers be like, you know what? I think we're going to be okay. And then like you said, if they can take a draft pick, turn that around, that would probably be the only time I would say, unless the receiver, unless it's a Diggs for Jefferson type trade where you trade Diggs and then you draft a guy like Jefferson, right, from the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if it's that kind of move and you're that sure on a guy and he's that much of a can't miss, then I wouldn't have a problem with the 1-for-1 trade. But yeah, I think the days of Javon Kinlaw, I mean, he could essentially be a backup this year, because I do think that the Niners need to address the defensive tackle position. Mm-hmm. And I think going forward, they need to address things with him as far as, even if he has an okay year this year, I still wouldn't bring him back.
Green Hargrave from Philly in free agency.
Yeah,
well, not mine,
there was a list. I'm going to ask you about some of these. My boy, where did he put this? It was not Bay Area, but Wayne Breezy. He had a list of some of these free agents. He's got right tackle Jawan Taylor, center Garrett Bradbury, safety Chauncey Gardner James, I think it is.
Johnson,
CJ, which is a lot of people are clamoring for him. He has Marcus Davenport, which is someone I really. If we're going to make a move on any free agents, I feel like drafting edge is so hard. And once you have edge, you never give up on them. If someone like Marcus Davenport hits free agency, if you're going to make one move in free agency, I think you bring in an edge to the other side of Bosa and you shore up that pass rush. But I don't know. What are your take?
He'll hit free agency because New Orleans is so over the cap. Yeah. There's no way they can keep him.
What's your thought? What's your thought on any of that?
Gardner Johnson's interesting. I talked about a couple of the free agents earlier this week, just trying to see what my thoughts were. And Gardner Johnson is a guy who I think the 49ers could go after, but I also think he'll demand a lot of money. I think he's the second, probably the number 2 safety in the class behind Jesse Bates, who should remain with Cincinnati. I would be surprised if he isn't franchise tagged or whatever it is, should remain with Cincinnati, making him the number 1. And so at a position where the 49ers haven't historically looked to spend at, because they've been able to develop enough and they've been able to get away with solid. I mean, Tashawn Gibson was a 1-year deal, a guy who was going to retirement, and they got what they got out of him. And so to me, I think that they're going to be, I don't think that they go that direction, although I wouldn't be mad at it. I think Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's a solid player, and he's versatile, which the 49ers really like out of their safeties. They like robber looks out of their safeties. They like 2-high looks. They like box looks. They like all sorts of different looks. They even like nickel looks. Gardner-Johnson can fit all that. So that's why I wouldn't mind Gardner Johnson. As for your idea about pairing Bosa with an edge rusher, I'm intrigued by that too. I would not be mad, and I've even stated a couple of times I would prefer in a big time investment. The 49ers, I believe, will make one, and I prefer that to be on the defensive line as opposed to the offensive line. Yep. And so to me,
agreed,
I will
100%.
change. I agree with the sentiment that we should go defensive line. I'll change the player, and I think that we should go after a defensive tackle. I think that defensive tackle, Daron Payne's my number 1. How realistic that is, we'll see. But the 49ers, they can get it done. I do think that they can get it done if they want, because Arik Armstead's a guy who likely does not remain with the 49ers for the next 4 years. I think after his deal, or even maybe before his deal's over, he'll likely end up in another jersey, be it via free agency or whatever it may be. And I think that Daron Payne is a logical guy to take over for Arik Armstead after whenever he ends up not being a 49er. And he's a young guy who the 49ers would target. Javon Hargraves is my second option. I think that both of them would be really good. The one thing I learned from the 2022 season that I was wrong, I'll admit completely I was wrong on, is that the 49ers, I thought they did a good thing in prioritizing the depth over the starting caliber talent. And I'm not saying that they didn't have starting caliber talent. They had some really good players on this team, but this line was not better than 2019. 2019
No,
was
not even
definitely a better line.
close.
And the difference is in the playoffs, you want players that can play all three downs. You don't want to necessarily rely on rotational players. Why? Because it not only gives away what you might be wanting to do on that play, but also it puts yourself at a disadvantage because let's say you have Charles Omenihu, and what are they going to do? They're going to run right at Charles Omenihu because he's not the best run defender. Instead, he's a pass rusher. So that means you pull out Charles Omenihu, put Jordan Willis in. Well, they're going to start throwing the football, understanding that Jordan Willis is a better run defender. And so to take away from situational issues like that, you want 3-down level players, and you're going to have to pay for 3-down level players. But I think if the 49ers make that investment, they should go for a defensive tackle because in today's NFL, it's as pass happy as it's ever been, which means you want to have lighter boxes, which the 49ers already incorporate with only normally 2 down linebackers and the linebackers being able to play in coverage as well. But to have lighter boxes and still be able to sustain a strong play against the run, you need players that can defend the run well, and you need those bodies up front, especially at defensive tackle. And I think that that's where they should go. Would not be mad at all though with the edge rusher.
Great analysis, man. I'm with you. Like defensive line to me seems like more pride. I just think it was the Bosa show this year. And when I saw Dallas and I saw the way Philly was able to create pressure, I mean Philly couldn't create any against Kansas City, but that's a whole other story. But the way they were able to create pressure, it just made me think of 2019 and having, when D Ford was healthy, Nick Bosa, D Ford, Eric Armstead, Forrest Buckner, Ronald Blair, DJ Jones. Like it was just a deep, saturated, fantastic, defense. And this year it was just, you have a lot of good depth situational guys, but you don't have another alpha male on the other side of Nick Bosa. It was like Nick Bosa was the dude. And then he just had a bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can see like Philly had, all the guys that they have, the big rusher
They
that
were all double-digit sacks.
Yeah. They almost had 80 sacks this year, 75, 74, something like that. Again, they didn't do anything in the Super Bowl, but
I think one of them only had like 7, but still, I mean, it was up there.
I think the closest Niner player had like 5 sacks this year after Bosa. That's not
Charlie
good enough.
Omenihu, I think he had 5, if I'm not mistaken. It was not enough. And Samson, I think he's, man. I don't know about you guys. I like him, but not for. I don't think they're going to bring him back for the production that he does. And we definitely need somebody in the middle. And I think the Niners. It's interesting that Rohan said about Armstead being gone, because I was thinking maybe they would restructure his contract, kind of kick the can down the line a little bit to make room to bring in to open up some cap space, to bring in someone like Deron Payne or Javon Hargrave. Because of his contract that is going to hit this year, I think they could restructure him and maybe Kittle's or someone else's. But if they, like you said, if they wanted to make it work, they can make it work. It just depends who's out there and who's available. But they do need to bring someone they can help out Nick Bosa. It can't just be the one-man show. It's just too hard on Nick Bosa.
It's great to have depth, but
it is. But you need to have some good players in front too.
Yeah, like you have to have your 4 dudes that are on play in and play out are your guys. Like I said, the Niners have a bunch of dudes that are all really good players, but they're not. To me, they're not starter level guys. They're rotational pieces being forced into a job that maybe they're not. Like you said, you got Willis, who's not as good against the pass, like you said, right? But he's better against the run. And then you have Omenihu, who's weak against the run, but better against the pass. So those guys are great to have. Like when you want to run your, what do they call it? Not the elephant. What's the name when they call it? The NASCAR package. It's going to be interesting this year, though, Rohan, because they're bringing in Steve Wilkes, who's more of a blitzer. He runs strictly mostly cover 3, right?
Yeah.
And he likes to blitz. The Niners are going to leave themselves in some precarious positions next year. I think, hopefully Emmanuel Mosley can come back on the cheap, and you got Diamond Lenore and you have Chavarius Ward, but that'll be interesting. They said they might implore more of a single high where you have Hufanga playing closer to the line of scrimmage where he's better. So the Niners defense is going to look, I think the Niners are going to look a little different on defense next year. Which to me,
I
I'm
think
fine
so
with.
too.
I
Yeah.
like
And
aggressive blitzing defenses at the
and
right time.
mhm. And
Go
I
ahead.
think that when you talk about the Steve Wilkes scheme, right? Uh, I think that scheme is very interesting because a lot of schemes overlap. You're going to see a lot of overlapping. The main difference, Aaron, you brought it up. It's the blitzing. I think that you will see blitzing, but I also think that Steve Wilkes won't blitz to the levels that he's blitzed before. Because in Arizona, he had a really crappy defense. I mean, for being honest, that defense sucked. That's why you had to blitz so much. And then
Yep.
I think he was in Cleveland in 2019. That defense wasn't that special. I mean, you had Myles Garrett and all, but it wasn't too special to the level that you could be very comfortable. So I do think the blitz levels go down this year, which will be intriguing. But that defense will be very fun. And Beto, as for your point on Armstead, right? When you talk about Armstead, I think that restructuring Armstead, me personally, I believe that'd be a mistake. The 49ers have already pushed that money back a lot. And the
Yep.
reason, like when you talk about Armstead's dead cap hit, I mean not dead cap hit of 24 million this year and 25 point whatever next year. The reason the contracts where the contract is because the 49ers have pushed money back already.
Yep.
To
Correct.
me, I would touch 3 different contracts because of the understanding. I wouldn't
Warner.
touch George Kittle. You're right. Warner, because he's in the first year of his deal. And Warner's a guy who, when you look at the contract, there are void years where you have an understanding the 49ers are going to re-extend Warner. He's the one guy I feel fairly confident the 49ers will re-up at the end of his deal and sign to at least 31 or 32. And then he's one. McCaffrey will undoubtedly be restructured because he has no guaranteed money
Yes.
left. He will
That's the other
likely
one.
he will likely get a restructure to get guaranteed money on his deal, which lowers his cap hit. And then Nick Bosa would be the third one because his extension will likely take his $17 million
That
cap
is
hit
correct.
this year lower, depending on how much the signing bonus is. I would assume the signing bonus be around 40 million. I haven't checked the numbers too deeply. I
So that
haven't
would
looked
make
into
his
the
cap hit
extension.
this coming season lower,
It would be
which
9
allows the
million,
49ers
saving
to
you
do
another
more
8 million. Yeah.
if
Yes.
they end up pushing those other two guys in extensions.
Exactly. And
And I
They
forgot
somebody
about
said they could
Fred
have
Warner. You make a
yeah,
very
Fred.
good
Yeah,
point.
you have to do it with guys that you know are going to be here and be productive.
right. And those are
Pushing
the
the
3
can
guys.
down the road on Trent Williams is stupid.
To me, I wouldn't do it because not only because of that, I think that there's a good chance he retires before he's 39. And
Yeah.
so if
Absolutely.
you might take $40 million and lose 40 million if you're restructuring Trent Williams, understanding he's not going to play for you the year that you might have a dead cap hit, and then
Yep.
you're stuck.
Yeah.
And to me, Beto, the one other thing I will say on the 49ers and the free agents, the reason that they're going to be able to do the issue necessarily isn't 2023. To me, the issue is actually the years after. The reason I say this, when you sign free agents with the 49ers, they always have the low first year of cap hit. Deron Payne, if he signs, his cap hit might be $6 million this year. It might not be the 25 that his contract or 20 that his contract might say. It'll be 6 million and then it exponentially increases. The issue
Correct.
though is if you're going to pay Nick Bosa, if you're going to have Ark Armstead and a guy like Deron Payne under contract, that means that next year you might be paying $80 million to those 3 people combined. And can you factor that in? That's where the trickiness kind of gets
That's
into
where
it.
they move on
Cap,
from
I think,
Armstead.
exactly, but there's a dead cap hit to Armstead, and so there's
That's
a
true.
lot of different complexities. That's to me, that's where the 49ers have to figure it out. How do they understand how to maneuver these deals to where they can not only have financial flexibility this year, but also next year? Because these are the 2 years. If you don't win a championship here, I have a hard time believing the 49ers are going to figure out a way when they're going to have to pay a quarterback. Because these are the years where the quarterback is under a rookie deal. You win championships when your quarterback is under a rookie deal.
Yep.
49ers, they've got 2 more years to do it.
I agree. This is a window where they have to do it. This is why I wanted you on here because you're when it comes to cap stuff, I can't say a savant, but you have savant level abilities.
You're a very intelligent young man, brother.
Yes, you are.
We appreciate your information.
Definitely.
Appreciate
Any
y'all,
news
man.
on the combine? Are you doing any work? Are you looking into anybody? Are you going?
I unfortunately will not because of school, and I'm missing a week for college basketball, the March Madness tournament. So I unfortunately will not. But I do. Started draft prep early. I started right after we lost our NFC Championship game that Monday. I started right on it, so
You're a glutton
I
for
got in a little
punishment.
bit of a head start. But I looked at some Senior Bowl players still getting in there. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an exciting draft time, man.
Young Montana says running it back is just Revenge Tour 7.0. Yeah, the Revenge Tour is going to be until we actually win it, another one. But yeah, I haven't even done a mock draft, and I don't really. I'm not a draft guy.
Oh,
I
I
let
love
the
the
people
draft.
that know what they're talking about, and then I just listen to them.
But that's how you learn. You keep
Yeah,
you
that. Well,
play.
I was listening to Brian Peacock on Locked On 49ers, and he was asked about cap stuff and this, that, and contracts. He's like, listen, I don't know anything about that or X's and O's, he goes, but when it comes to scouting, he goes, that's where my like if you ask him scouting stuff, Brian Peacock is one of those guys who knows this stuff. So everybody's got their expertise level on something. Um, real quick, I don't know if you guys picked up on the unfortunate sad news with the Kittle family about his wife and her unfortunate miscarriage. She actually had a really serious medical condition that not a lot of women have, where the baby is actually developed outside of where it's supposed to be and developed in another part of the woman's
Oh, I didn't
body, and
know
like
that.
it could have killed her. And they caught it early enough. So unfortunately,
Damn.
yeah,
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know that.
women
Wow.
when women, I guess the women
No, I
are
know what you're
pregnant.
talking about, but I didn't know it was happening to Kiddo's wife.
Yeah, well, I picked it up on it. I follow this one girl on Twitter, and I'm like, what happened to Kittle? I'm like, oh God. It was happening kind of during the end of the season, and then you
I
would
know
have
they.
never
I
known
read
with
something
that
about if she
guy.
was pregnant. They found out that she was pregnant. They were celebrating about that, but I didn't know about this.
Yeah,
Man,
it's a situation where the egg is developed within the fallopian tube and not within the uterus, and that can be fatal. The pregnancy usually doesn't survive, and it could kill
the
of course
mom.
the host, the mother.
Yeah.
So that's when football really doesn't matter. That's why Kittle, I get annoyed with his happy-go-lucky demeanor, but then you see something like that happens, and you're like, you feel completely different. It's just like you don't even care like about football at that point. But
It's funny how you said that you get annoyed with this happy-go-lucky, but
because I'm a negative guy by nature
I'm
because I'm a
like,
New Yorker
I love,
and I'm
I love
Italian.
him being positive. What would you want him to do? Kicking and complaining and
And
bitching?
you're right. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. It's the nature of the nationality that my mom's family,
Freaking Italians.
Italian people you're kind of just crusty, man. We're irritable.
But
There's always something.
let's keep Kiddo and his wife in prayer, man.
Yeah,
Honestly, because
definitely,
that is
definitely.
sad.
I think that might be it, guys. The only other thing that I have on here is the Bosa contract, Rohan, and then we'll get out of here. What's your thought on just your ballpark of yearly? What do you think his yearly contract number would be?
33.
Because he talked about not
Man.
wanting to be the most high paid guy, but I mean he's gonna get paid.
He's
at
going to
least
get the money. I
33.
mean, regardless, one thing you can count on that family to do is get their money.
I was just
Yeah.
saying that. I told that to my brother. I was like, the
No
Bosas get
charity
paid.
from them.
Bosas
Like,
won't play unless they get
yeah.
paid.
Like, I mean, Joey Bosa, I know a lot of us didn't follow it because it's not our team, but his contract was unprecedented at the time. He increased the guaranteed money on his deal. He increased the highest ever by 16 million. 16 million, nearly 25% of what the previous money was. And this is like when you see the resetting the market, it's sometimes by like $50,000. He reset it by $16 million. That's how crazy his deal was. And I mean, Nick Bosa's
And it's going to
better.
get resetted with Bosa.
Yeah.
Nick.
So I mean, to me, how I look at it, I don't care. You can pay him $70 million. I don't care what that number is. I care how much guaranteed money are they going to have to shell out? Is it upwards of $100 million? I'd settle around 105, although I have to look a lot more into it before I make my article later this offseason. Settle around 105, and then how much money do you guarantee at signing? Guarantee at signing includes the signing bonus and then the guaranteed salaries. Do you guarantee 2 years of his contract, which is normal for NFL players, but a player of his stature, you're likely guaranteeing 3? And also, what is the signing bonus? That's the biggest question because the signing bonus will dictate how much money his cap hit will be this year.
Yep.
If the signing bonus is $35 million like his brother's was, which is the highest, I believe, still for 5 year on a 5 year deal, that means his cap hit will be $8 million this year because the signing bonus is $7 million over 5 years, and then added on to the $1.035 million in base he'll likely make this year. He'll make a cap hit of $8 million this year. And so those are the three key figures. I think that there's a lot of talk around it. I'd assume if Bosa is looking to reset the market in all three, TJ Watt has the highest signing bonus right now at $35.5 million guaranteed at signing. TJ Watt also has it at 80, and then Bosa's total guarantees is 102. I'd maybe expect a contract in 105 of total guarantees. In terms of guaranteed at signing, maybe 85 million, and then signing bonus maybe 40 million, 36 to 40 million, putting his cap at around 8 million, 9 million at the year.
So either way, he's going to get paid.
This
isn't going to be a Parag Marathe magic show discount.
Oh, no.
Someone's getting paid.
But Aaron, when we talk about the biggest contracts possible, Parag finds a way to make it just even more crazy than you like all the big contracts. Parag just he finds a different way, man. Like,
he'll always lowball initially. They always lowball.
I don't know if it's necessarily lowballing initially, but it's like upfront money. They don't pay upfront money. Like which means they won't pay a high salary.
No guarantee. That's why you can never have guaranteed contracts in the NFL.
Right.
You just can't. Not in a physically demanding sport. You can do it in baseball because it's a country club sport.
Unless you're the Browns.
Yeah, unless you're the Browns. Listen, as long as they could do something contractually wise where it can help the 49ers this year and maybe next year, add some more defensive line help. Good way to keep Bosa healthy so he can actually play through his contract is to not have Bosa be your only pass rusher that can actually get double-digit sacks. We need to reinvest. All the people that banged on here's the two things that we always bang on the Niners for: drafting or free agency. We always bang on them and get pissed that they over go after too much running backs. Like, oh, they draft so many running backs. I don't know why they go after so many running backs. I don't know why they sign so many running backs. You see why. Every year it's the same thing. We lose like half of them, right? Mm-hmm. You got Elijah Mitchell. I love him to death, but I think next year, if he has another year where he's not playing very much, I think that's the end of the Elijah Mitchell story, personally. The other thing is defensive line bashing on the Niners. The Niners 2019 team was insane. Why? Because they had like 3 or 4 first rounders on that team, and you had D Ford on that team. I don't know if it necessarily in today's NFL if it matters, because I'm starting to think it's becoming more of an offensive league. Like the Super Bowl we saw, the Eagles supposedly had this great defense and they were completely neutralized by Patrick Mahomes. It's starting to almost become like, unless you have an elite level quarterback, you have no chance of competing for a championship. So I don't know. Right. The Niners got to find a way to, do things their way and maybe change the narrative on that one. Cause right now it looks like unless you have a high level quarterback, you're not winning. So, but it'll be interesting. The next couple of weeks will be interesting with the news on Purdy and then free agency. I'm looking forward to all that stuff. And my buddy Charles knows that I can't stand the Chiefs, but I told him that I was so happy that they actually won. And he was like, no, I'm like, yeah, I'm actually happy. Cause I met him right after we lost to the Chiefs a couple years ago. And like, I was so depressed. I was depressed probably like 6 to 8 months after the game. I was just so mad. So everybody I always met him with, I can't believe the Chiefs won. And it would be like 3 or 4 months later. So, all right, everybody. I appreciate the supers. Everybody's been really great. Rohan, I am so happy that I asked you to come on. That was exactly what I was aiming for. Me and Beto, we could talk our love and admiration for the SF on the helmet, but sometimes we need to know all the nitty gritty. So I appreciate it very much. I wish we could do this more often. I say the same thing with Raj. I get jealous when people get locked in shows with everybody, and I'm like, I want a locked in show. But I appreciate you coming through. Everybody like, subscribe if you like what you see. And like I said, I'll do content based on what's happening. If we get some news in the next week or so and closer to free agency, then I'll be on here. So I'll see you guys next time. Everybody in the chat, thank you very much. And go Niners.